What's going on, guys? I'm up at Pocahontas State Park and I've got the 2023 Marin Pine Mountain 1. We're gonna ride some flow trails on this thing, also talk about some of the other rides I've done, and just give you my general opinion on this budget-oriented steel hardtail. So I've been riding this Pine Mountain for a few months now, not exclusively because I'm also still riding the Rift Zone. There's definitely a lot of things I like about this bike. There's a few things that even surprised me, some things that I didn't think I was going to like, but I actually do. And, you know, obviously with any bike, there's a couple downsides too. I've taken it on quite a few different style trails, but this is gonna be the first time that I'm really riding it on kind of dedicated, more machine-built flow trails, you know, made for mountain biking. So I'm interested to see how it's gonna do here. We'll also talk about how it's done in some of these other trails, splice in some clips, give you a general overview of what I think about this bike. All right, we're gonna start it off on Blueberry, which begins with a quick little downhill kind of section. Woo! Sandy turn there. That always gets me. Now, coming from the Rift Zone last, I rode here, I don't know, 3 days ago. These brakes on this Pine Mountain are light years ahead of those. These are the MT-400s, I believe. And they just grab so much better. So since I just rode here a few days ago, it's gonna be nice to have that back-to-back, sort of back-to-back comparison. So I can tell you about some of the other trails I've ridden. I rode the James River Park system, been on North Bank and Buttermilk. More technical riding than flow riding. More rocks, techie climbs, stuff like that. And this bike surprised me on just about all of it. Techie climbs, it just seemed to eat them up. There's a particular climb on North Bank, I think it's called Bill's Hill. And, you know, I would say I'm 50% on cleaning that thing. It's just steep and rocky and a lot of places to get kind of hung up on. And of the 2 times I rode there on this bike, I made it up each time, no problem. I think in large part due to the Vee Tire Flow Snaps that are quite grippy. Let's hit this downhill section. Then we'll talk a little bit more about those tires. Woo! Yeah. Yeah, I will say, I've noticed it in just about every other situation, but this steel frame does seem to have a lot of compliance to it. I mean, obviously this is a flow trail, but there's still ruts and roots and stuff in it. And they just don't seem that harsh as they have on other hardtails I've ridden. And especially when you can come from riding a full suspension bike here a few days ago to now this, and I don't feel like it's beating the crap out of me. That's pretty impressive. So back to those Flow Snap tires, I was expecting not to like them because they came stock on my Rift Zone. They were draggy, but they were grippy. On this bike, they are the Flow Snaps with the MPC compound and not the tacky compound. And I think that that gives them the perfect balance of grip and speed, because it doesn't feel like I'm dragging an anchor when I'm just pedaling, but it grips in the corners enough. Now going back and forth between this and the Rift Zone, it doesn't really feel like that big of a learning curve hopping back and forth between them. I guess the geometry is pretty similar. I mean, this has a pretty slack head tube angle, which of course I like. Short stem. I don't know, you know, sometimes you switch between bikes and for the first half hour it just feels weird and you feel off. I don't really feel that way. So back to more technical riding, JRPS, stuff like that. You know, you got the techie climbs, but you've also got rocky little downhill chutes and stuff like that. There, I mean, the bike does good, but it's certainly no replacement for a full suspension bike on that. Going down Bill's Hill, I stuffed it kind of into a gap between two rocks and felt like I was going over the bars. Never had that happen on full suspension, but it's not really fair to compare the two of them. The Rockshox Recon fork on this is another thing that's kind of a pleasant surprise to me. I mean, I know they're not bad forks, but they're clearly not high-end forks either. But it feels good, you know? Not much adjustment. I think there's maybe 5 clicks on the rebound. And for some people, that's kind of nice because you're just going to find that one that feels right to you. You're just going to leave it there. I know for me, sometimes I can get caught up in micro adjusting things. Kind of takes the fun away from what you're supposed to be doing, which is riding. With the Recon fork, you just can't do that. And it's fine. You set it and focus on riding. And now it is a fork that's kind of on the heavier side. It's got, I think, steel uppers on it. Kind of funny that, like, yeah, steel mountain bike frame, it's desirable. Steel uppers on the fork, not so much, because you kind of want the fork to be a bit stiffer, at least like laterally. And you want it to be lighter too, but I don't mind it at all, and it definitely would not be on my short list of things to replace on this bike. All right, so the drivetrain, also, I don't know if I'd say it's a pleasant surprise, because obviously Deore is good, but it's worked flawlessly. And I like the fact that they went with the Deore 11 speed, not the 12 speed, because it saves you a little bit of weight. Not a lot, but a little bit. And unpopular opinion, and I've announced it before, I just don't like 12-speed drivetrains. I feel like the gears are too close together. You're always double shifting up and down the cassette. 11-speed just feels right to me. The clicks are nice and easy on the shifter. It's just done everything it's supposed to do. Now, some of the other riding that I've done on this bike is, I guess, what you would kind of consider like adventure riding. Not all day epics, but sometimes I get up real early in the morning and ride around my neighborhood, other neighborhoods, and it's a mixture of sidewalks, roads, paved pathways, gravel, even some actual kind of like dirt trails that maybe connect neighborhoods, connect a school to a neighborhood, something like that. That's a fun bike for that too. That's the type of situation where you definitely don't need a full suspension bike, but having something a little more compliant like this versus an aluminum hardtail, I think is beneficial for something like that. And I guess back to the other parts of the drivetrain, the crank and the bottom bracket all feel good to me. It's an external cut bottom bracket, which I really like seeing. A lot of more budget oriented, you know, under $2,000, under $1,500 bikes, you get these square tapered junky bottom brackets, heavy. So it is nice that they put that external one on there. Crank arms feel good. They don't feel too flexy or anything.
Hey, it's voiceover Brian here. Forgot to mention on those cranks, they're 175 millimeters. I really do wish they were 170. There doesn't seem to be much of a downside going to shorter cranks, but on those uphill techie climbs, I definitely had more pedal strikes than I'm used to, and I think this bike would really benefit from a little bit shorter cranks.
Now, with all those good things said, there's a couple things I don't like too much. The handlebars are weird to me. I know the specs say they have a certain back sweep and a certain rise, but they just feel to me like they kind of point either flat or even slightly downward going out. And then if you roll them forward to try to compensate for that, you know, they go forward and kind of up a little bit. Well, then they're too far forward. So personally, I would probably swap out the bars. But if you are doing bike packing, something like that where you want to put bags on, you do have this nice bar across the top. And if that's your intentions, then these bars are probably perfect for you. Now, the other thing is the rear hub. In the first video that I did on this bike, we saw that there were only 16 clicks for, you know, that full revolution of it. So the engagement's not high on it at all. Kind of to be expected though at this price point. Actually, not kind of, definitely. So it doesn't really bother me that much, but it does have a bit of a rumbly noise to it when you're coasting. Not so noticeable on the trails with the dirt and everything, but at least on the road, if I'm pedaling and I stop, I hear a little bit of a rumbling and I feel some vibration in through the pedals actually. My guess is I may have just gotten a bike with slightly defective rear hub. Maybe it's just not adjusted properly. I would think if you were considering one of these and you bought one and you had a similar situation, it would probably be a warranty deal. And obviously you can tell that I'm out here riding and enjoying myself. It's not affecting it that much, but I just don't think that's really how it's supposed to be. All right, we're gonna do bell downhill. I actually wanna see how close I can get to my PR on this thing. So let's hit it. Probably won't be talking that much during this, so I can concentrate. And this is my first time on the Pine Mountain on this trail.
Hey, it's voiceover Brian again. So while I'm doing bell downhill, it'll give me a great opportunity to talk about the biggest thing that was mentioned in the comments from my first video on this bike, and that is the lack of the through axle in the rear. Now I kind of see this from two ways. Obviously, I wish it had a through axle as well. It's just a more modern standard. It's something that's going to be a standard going forward in the future for quite a while. This has a 141 quick release axle. Now in terms of actual performance on the trails, I don't think anybody would notice the difference between the two. And honestly, if the name of the game is compliance and a little bit of flexibility, having the quick release axle might actually benefit that side of it. So I totally get it. It would be great to have the through axle back there, but I don't think that it's a deal breaker by any means.
Yeah, now that I'm going fast like this, I don't quite trust these flow snaps as much as other tires I've ridden. You know, you want that really, you like that tacky compound in the front, honestly. Now there's a pedally section. All right, I have no idea how close that was to my PR. Felt pretty fast, but my reaction could be anything from, woo, this bike is awesome, to, yeah, it's kind of what I expected, to, well, that's pretty slow. Disappointing.
All right, voiceover Brian, one more time. So I got a time of 1 minute and 45 seconds, which is only 2 seconds slower than the time I did a couple days ago on that rift zone, and only 3 seconds slower than my PR on this trail. So I am very pleased with that, especially considering that I kind of blew one of the corners in there, and you know, I just didn't feel like I was giving it my full effort in some of those sections where you had to pedal really hard. To still be only 3 seconds off the PR, that's impressive.
Now, I haven't mentioned the dropper post on this bike. I've put on a PNW dropper post. It's got 125 millimeters of travel. It's a large, I'm about 6 feet, so you can see there's, you know, 2 inches of exposure, straight as it gets, seat tube. So you could put a much longer dropper post in this if you wanted to. Well, you know what, let me scratch that. You've got these water bottle bosses here, so you're limited to that, but I think you could go 150 on this without any problems. You know, stock form, it just comes with a standard seat post. No big deal, $1,500 bike. I don't think you should expect a dropper post when you're getting all these other things. So with most bikes, the big question is, like, who is the bike for? What type of rider will it suit? With this bike, I think it kind of can span a few different people. Say you're a hardtail rider, but you feel like you're just getting a little bit too beat up on that hardtail, and I don't know, for some reason you don't want to go to full suspension, added complexity, pivot bearings and all that stuff. This can give you a little bit of that cushiness that you're looking for. Now, if you're like a hardcore XC rider, interested purely in speed, this is probably not going to be the bike. It is heavy. I haven't touched on it yet in this video. I think it was like 36 pounds with pedals. I put the dropper post on, it's even more than that now. It's not massively noticeable, but if you are that type of XC rider, highly, you know, tuned into that kind of stuff, you probably would notice it and you would not like the weight of this bike. Now the other side is, maybe you're a full suspension rider, and it happens to a lot of us. You get interested back in hardtails. Similar situation, you don't want to be completely beat up with some really rigid aluminum hardtail. This could be a good bike for you too. Maybe you also just need one bike to do everything. Commute, mountain bike, gravel rides. This is kind of like a jack of all trades bike. So the other use case for this bike that I can see, and this is kind of the big one, the standout, is if you've got a $1,500 budget and you want a steel hardtail, this is it. Like, I can't find a single other hardtail on the market at this price point. And even if you had a $2,000 budget, I still don't think you're gonna find a steel hardtail for that. You could take your $2,000, put $1,500 into the purchase of this bike, add a dropper post, maybe switch up the tires if you don't particularly like these tires, go tubeless, and still stay within your $2,000 budget. All the other steel hardtails that I can find, and you know, who knows, somebody in the comments may know more than me, but they're all well over $2,000. Now, you do get higher end forks and stuff like that, but this is kind of the entry-level steel hardtail. Well, there you have it. That's my long-term review on this 2023 Marin Pine Mountain 1. So many things to love about this bike. I've really enjoyed riding it for the time that I have, and I would like to thank Marin Bikes for sending this to me to test out. I said it at the first video, but you know, they sent it to me. I don't get to keep it, but I get to ride it for a while, and I have enjoyed it thoroughly. I hope that everybody watching has found these videos useful, informative. You know, if you're considering one of these bikes and you have any specific questions, definitely leave them in the comments. Be glad to answer any questions you have. If you've ridden a Pine Mountain yourself, let me know in the comments. Thanks a lot for watching this video, and I'll see you next time. Oh yeah, and one more thing. Don't forget to like and subscribe. I'll see you next time.